There are certain moments in a person's life which are turning points, and one's life is never the same ever after. I had such a surprise turning point after the 1967 war, when I was 19 years old. The context was, at this time, I was very deeply identified with the Israeli side of the story. I felt that we had a miraculous rescue from being dumped into the sea, as President Nasser of Egypt promised us. And I felt that our neighbors wanted to destroy us. And miraculously, we ended up with Egypt in the south, the West Bank in the east, the Golan Heights in the north, the Gaza Strip along the shore, and East Jerusalem with the holy places where we could finally go and see. And this was very real. I was at the time preparing to become an officer in the Israeli Defense Forces, and it was 2 or 3 weeks after the war. It was a hot July day. I was alone at home, and there is a ring at the gate. And I'm opening the gate, and there are standing 3 young men dressed in the strangest manner. They were wearing suits and ties. And the last time I had seen that was in an American film. One of them spoke up very softly. I could see that they were frightened. I could see they didn't know who would open the door. And he said, this is my childhood home. Could we please come in? We came from Ramallah. Now, they came from Ramallah to Ramle. Ramle is a little town between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv by the airport, Ben Gurion Airport. It's a mixed town of Arabs and Jews. It's full of Jewish immigrants from all over the world. And what would you do? I mean, it was the first time that people from the West Bank could cross, since 1948, could cross to Israel, and Israelis could cross to the West Bank. Now I'm standing there at the door. What would you do? I had to say yes or no, so immediately. So this is going on in my mind. On the one hand, I'm a woman alone at home, and they are 3 men. What's more, they're the enemy. On the other hand, this enemy is not so bad. I mean, they look pretty decent, people like me and my neighbors. And what's more, I could be in their place. I could be standing in front of my parents' home in Bulgaria, at the door, wondering who would open the door, and just wishing to reconnect. The most reasonable thing would have been to say, you know what, I'm alone at home. Come when my parents are back from work. Reasonable? But I knew I would never see them again. I was not ready to miss this opportunity. And I knew deep, deep, deep inside my heart, I'd been waiting for these people all my life. I could feel, as I was growing up in this house in Ramle, this Arab house in Ramle, I could feel their memories, I could feel their dreams, I could feel their presence, all in the walls, coming at me. I was waiting, unconsciously, I was waiting for this moment. So, with a very spontaneous smile, I said, of course you're welcome, come in. And they did. They walked in. They walked in the house in complete silence. They were very moved, as if it was a temple, you know. And then we came to the yard, and in the yard there was this abundant lemon tree, which had been watering and spading, whatever you call it. And the young man said, I remember this lemon tree. My father planted it. Of course, I offered them lemon juice. On their way out, Bashir al-Khairi introduced himself and asked me to return the visit, to go and visit them in Ramallah. I did. It was a huge crossing of a boundary at that time. And as a result of this visit, two families acknowledged their, you could say, their inner connection. It's like by fate. Yes, we were born out of the same land, the same house. The Ashkenazi family in Ramle, the Al-Khairi family in Ramallah. The extended family started coming to my home. My mother and father, Solia and Moshe, received them with warmth and with a lot of lemon juice from their own tree. And it seemed that peace came to the heart. That peace came to the heart. But on the 20th of February, 1969, there was a big explosion in Jerusalem in the Agron supermarket. People were killed, people were wounded, and Bashir al-Khairi, the young man, was accused by Israel of being complicit. All visits stopped. He was imprisoned for 15 years. And that seemed the end of an impossible friendship. The years went by, and I was sitting at the yard, looking at the lemon tree, looking at the fitna tree, which the Al-Khairi family also planted. And I said to myself, on the one hand, this is the only home I know. I grew up here since infancy, and my father bought this house from the state of Israel. On the other hand, we have been living in a house which another family had built, whose memories and dreams are still there, a family that longs to return to their home. What am I? What am I, Dalia? What am I, Dalia Ashkenazi, going to do about it? I went to university, I got married. Bashir came out of prison, he got married. He had Ahmad, his first son. And my husband and I, we decided to search the family out. Can you imagine this after all these years? Bashir, what are we going to do with your home, with my home, with our home? Bashir refused compensation. And he said, I did not have a childhood. And I wish this house to be dedicated to the Israeli Palestinians in Ramle and the area. I wanted to be a nursery school for them. And I wanted to be called Dalia's nursery school. No, I said it will be called Bashir's nursery school. Anyways, I just embraced this idea. And we wanted this house to serve also as a coexistence center, because we knew that without peace at home, there is no peace. I wanted to say something that I didn't mention before, and it was that through the story of the Al-Khairi family, I learned at a time when this information was hidden, I learned about their experience. I learned about the Palestinian story, about their suffering, about their exile in 1948 from Ramle and Lod and all the villages around. And believe me, it was very painful. It was painful because it was their suffering, and it was painful because my love for my country was losing its innocence. And I had to delve much deeper in order to discover a deeper love than is based on ideals, on being right, on being the righteous victim. Something else, something more inclusive that can include the light and the shadow into the heart. After this meeting, I understood that I had committed myself to something very big, which I felt completely helpless in implementing. I said, oh, fools rush in. Indeed, what did you undertake? You undertook something which you are not capable of doing. You are a contemplative, do meditation, study religion, psychology. What have you got to do with manifesting such a social project? Gathering courage up, and we found partners in Ramle, we found partners in Neve Shalom with whom we are working, and here is Noam Schuster here. And we created a home in which Israeli Palestinian children come every day. It was established when there was no such other project for Israeli Palestinians in their own language, strengthening their own identity. Here is Lamis Salman, who is one of the teachers in our nursery school. And our coexistence activities include, all of these things: summer camps, leadership training, delegations abroad, teacher training, and above all, compassionate listening. Compassionate listening. Now, what guides our work is, first of all, now listen to that. This is, first of all, it's acknowledgement. Now, acknowledgement is something very deep. It's not just acknowledging the suffering. It's acknowledging the beauty of the other, their culture, their individuality, the other as an individual, as Rachel, or Sami as Muhammad, entering through the life of individual, into the life of the family, into the life of the community. And we do this by different techniques. For example, bringing an object that has been in the family for a long time, the story around it, and then you find that there is such common things, that pain and courage and hope are universal. Or when we were invited to Holland to rehabilitate a synagogue that has fallen into disuse during the Holocaust. And there was Gil Cohen. Lamis, you also were in this delegation, weren't you? Yes? Yes. So there was Gil Cohen, 18 years old, and he is wearing a mask and a sledgehammer, and according to the instructions of the master builders, is pounding at the wall to discover the window, the original window of the synagogue. And he tells me that as he broke through, the light rushed in, and he felt that this light was rushing into his heart. And he said to me, it made all the difference in the world that my Palestinian friends were with me to embrace the wound of my family and to embrace the healing that occurred at this moment. And this is contrary to what we are used to thinking, that nobody understands our pain. We have this expression in Hebrew, Zar lo yavin zot, a stranger cannot understand it. And here were these friends and he said, it would have been impossible for me to feel this healing if it were not for my Arab friends of all people who were there embracing me. Then I asked George Fashcho, I said, George, he is a Christian Orthodox from 23 years old then, from Ramle, and I said, George, what did it mean to you to work for a synagogue? And George said, we are working for humanity here, for humanity. Such a thing should never happen again to anyone. And I said, but George, what about your suffering? And George said, but at open house, that's how it's called, open house Ramle, in open house, we are all the time doing things for each other. We are all the time working together. You see, George Fashcho refused to become part of the competition over victimization. And therefore, acknowledgement, I see that my time is up. Yes, okay, so the last sentence. That acknowledgement is part of expanding the heart, finding the divine spark inside to warm that tent of Abraham, to include more and more. And I find it is a daily practice, by the way. I would like to end with something from a very great man, one of our greatest sages called Hillel the Elder, and he said, who is a hero? He who can turn his enemy into his friend. So, amen for all of us to turn our enemies into our friends. And let's start with our next door neighbors. Thank you.